Can you imagine becoming the servant of your own enemy? Swearing loyalty with a sword at your throat, trapped at the bottom of a well, knowing that if you speak, you die? That's how the story of Harap Alb begins. One single mistake, and one bald man changes his fate forever. Once upon a time, there lived a king who had 3 sons. The king also had an older brother known as the Green Emperor, who ruled at the far edge of the world. The Green Emperor had no sons, only daughters, so he wrote to his brother asking him to send the most worthy of his nephews to inherit the empire. The king decided to test his sons. He dressed himself in a bear's skin and waited for them beneath a bridge. When the eldest and the middle son saw the beast, they were seized by fear and turned back home in shame. Only the youngest son remained. Grieved by his brother's failure, the young prince met a hunched old woman begging in the royal garden. Moved by pity, he gave her a coin. But the old woman was no ordinary beggar. She was Saint Sunday in disguise. "Son of a king," she told him, "go to your father and ask for the clothes, weapons, and horse he had when he was a groom in his youth. Only then will you succeed." The young man obeyed. He found his father's old horse, which looked like a miserable, worn-out nag. But after eating a tray full of burning embers, the horse shook itself and turned into a magical steed that could fly like the wind and the thought. When the young prince reached the bridge, he did not fear the bear, his own father in disguise. Seeing his courage, the king blessed him and gave him a bear's skin, but warned him gravely, "My son, on your journey beware of the red man, and above all beware of the bald man. Do not deal with them." The young prince set out on his journey, but deep within a dark forest he lost his way. There he encountered the bald man, a cunning fellow with no beard or mustache. The bald man offered to become his servant, and though the prince was reluctant, he eventually accepted out of necessity. When they reached a deep well, the bald man tricked the prince into climbing down to cool himself. Then the villain slammed the lid shut, trapping him inside. "From now on," sneered the bald man, "I will be the emperor's nephew, and you will be my servant. Your name will be Harap Alb. Swear loyalty to me, or your bones will rot here." Threatened with death, the prince swore the oath, and so they arrived at the court of the Green Emperor, the bald man treated as a prince, and the true prince, Harap Alb, treated as a humble servant. Seeing that Harap Alb was hardworking and beloved by the emperor's daughters, the bald man plotted to kill him. He sent him to fetch lettuce from the bear's garden, a place from which no one ever returned alive. But Harap Alb, aided by Saint Sunday, put the bear to sleep with a potion of milk and honey, and returned safely with the lettuce. Enraged, the bald man sent him on an even deadlier mission, to bring back the hide of the stag adorned with precious jewels. The stag killed anyone with a single glance. Once again, Saint Sunday helped him. Harap Alb dug a pit, hid inside it, and when the stag came to drink water, he struck and cut off its head, bringing the jeweled hide back to court. Burning with envy, the bald man gave him one final task, from which he was sure Harap Alb would never return: to bring him the daughter of the Red Emperor as a bride, a fearsome sorceress who killed all her suitors. As Harap Alb journeyed through desolate lands, a bitter frost suddenly fell in the middle of summer. At the edge of a forest, he saw a strange man warming himself by an enormous fire made of 24 fathoms of wood. The man had thick, swollen lips. When he blew with the lower one, ice formed. When he blew with the upper one, frost appeared. It was Jerilla, the Lord of Frost. "Are you gorilla?" Harap Alb asked, his teeth chattering from the cold. "Laugh if you want, Harap Alb," the creature replied. "But without me, you won't achieve anything at the Red Emperor's court." Further on, they met a giant devouring the furrows left by 24 plows, shouting that he was starving. This was Flamunzila, the bottomless stomach. Then they encountered another who had drunk the water from 24 ponds and a river powering 500 mills, yet still cried that he was dying of thirst. This was Setila, the father of drought. Not far away stood a misshapen being with a single eye in the middle of his forehead, as large as a sieve. When it was open, he saw nothing. When closed, he saw everything beneath the earth. This was Okile. Finally, they met Pasarilatilungila, an archer who could stretch himself until he touched the moon. Recognizing their magical powers, Harap Alb gathered them all, forming the strangest company ever seen. When they arrived at the court of the Red Emperor, a man cruel at heart, he looked at them with contempt and decided to kill them that very night. He locked all 6 of them in a copper house and ordered a fire to be lit underneath until the walls glowed like embers. The heat was unbearable, but then Gerala blew 3 times with his enchanted little lips. In an instant, the house became freezing cold, and even icicles began to form on the companions' noses. In the morning, when the emperor came to gather their ashes, he found them shivering with cold and asking for firewood to his great astonishment. Furious, the emperor gave them the second trial, a deadly feast. He brought them 12 wagons of bread, 12 roasted cows, and 12 barrels filled with strong wine. "If you do not eat and drink everything, I will cut off your heads," he shouted. Then Flamanzila and Setila loosened their belts. Flamanzila swallowed the cows and the bread in a single breath and began to gnaw even on the bones, shouting that he was hungry. Setila drank the barrels in one gulp and even chewed the staves, crying that he was dying of thirst. The emperor held his head in despair at the loss. Seeing that he could not defeat them with food, he gave them the poppy seed trial. In a single night, they had to separate a bushel of poppy seeds mixed with sand. Here, the friendly ants, called by Harap Alb's wing, came by the thousands and picked grain by grain, leaving everything clean by the time the roosters crowed. The emperor's last hope was the hiding trial. The girl turned herself into a bird and hid behind the moon. But Okula saw her, and Poseri Lungila stretched himself as far as he could, grabbed her by the tail, and brought her back down to the earth. Defeated, the Red Emperor said, "I will give you my daughter, but I have 2 identical girls. Guess which one is mine?" Then a bee appeared and settled on the cheek of the true daughter. Harap Alb took her hand, and they began their journey home. Along the way, Harap Alb and the maiden fell in love. Yet the oath to the bald man weighed heavily upon his heart. When they reached the Green Emperor's court, the bald man tried to embrace the girl. She pushed him away and cried out before everyone, "Be gone, impostor! You are the servant, and this Harap Alb is the true emperor's nephew." Furious at being exposed, the bald man drew his sword and beheaded Harap Alb in a single blow. But Harap Alb's horse seized the bald man, carried him high into the sky, and dropped him, shattering him into dust. Then the Red Emperor's daughter placed Harap Alb's head back on his body, bound it with 3 apple twigs, and sprinkled him with the water of life and the water of death. Harap Alb awoke from a deep sleep, more radiant than before. "Well, I certainly slept a long time," he said. "You would have slept forever if it weren't for me," she replied with a smile. The Green Emperor, learning the truth, gave his empire to Harap Alb. The wedding began and lasted for years. Kings, queens, ants, and bees were invited. The joy was so great that it can still be heard today. And whoever goes there eats and drinks. And here among us, those who have money eat and drink, and those who don't, watch and endure. This was the tale of Harap Alb, who learned that friendship and kindness are stronger than any magic. I hope you enjoyed the story. As usual, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment with what story I should do next.